there, I'm Jackie Ferris. This week on the 302, we are at Hagley Museum and Library checking out their vintage car collection in a new exhibit called DuPonts Down the Road. All of these cars owned by the DuPonts, and we're going to show every single one of them to you next. The 302 is headed your way. Hey there, when you think of Hagley, you don't typically think of cars, but they do have an amazing exhibit called DuPonts Down the Road. And I'm joined now by Caroline Western-Osensky to talk a little bit about this really cool exhibit. Caroline, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, thanks for being here.
So we don't really think about cars when we think of the DuPonts. We think of mansions, we think of furniture, we think of antiques, but these cars are antiques.
Absolutely, and if you think about it, the automobile is really the central artifact of people's lives, and we want people to come in here and think about what memories do they associate with their favorite car from the past.
Now the first, I guess, car in the exhibit isn't really a car, but a carriage.
Absolutely, so it's an 1890s carriage that was manufactured by Cooley & Company right here in Wilmington, Delaware, around 1890 or so. And it was bought by Francis Gurney DuPont for his wife Elise. And one of my most favorite things about this carriage is that it underwent vast restoration for years before it came to Hagley in 2021. And inside the vehicle, they found notes, a shopping list that had Elise's shopping list for the day that she had unfortunately lost on the back of her seat, which is just so relevant to, I think, what a lot of us do in our cars. We lose things down that pocket seat all the time.
Sure, sure. And I can imagine that finding something like that when you're restoring it just makes it all the more valuable and interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so this vehicle was restored by Weavertown Coach up in Bird in Hand, Pennsylvania, around the Lancaster area. And all of the painting was done by hand, and it's just a gorgeous representation of an 1890s carriage.
So this would be a one-horse situation?
One-horse situation.
And you'd have to steer the horse yourself?
So yeah, so they would probably have had a driver, and then Elise and her husband or whoever she was traveling with that day would have been sat inside of the carriage. And then there was also speaking tubes so that they communicate with the driver back and forth if necessary.
Like an intercom?
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
amazing to see that. Now, right next to it, a really cool car. It's an electric car, kind of like Back to the Future, if it were.
Yeah. So at our car show this past year, we had a Cadillac electric vehicle as well. So it was fun to see the similarities between the two, or the not similarities. But this is a 1912 Detroit electric vehicle, and this was purchased by P.S. DuPont of Longwood Gardens fame for his sister, Louisa Dandelat DuPont Copeland.
That's a lot to say.
It's a lot. It's a big name. It's a big name. So he bought actually 4 of these vehicles for the 4 sisters that he had. And this was known as stereotypically as a women's vehicle because it was so easy to operate.
So his sisters would have driven these vehicles?
Absolutely, around the properties in this area.
Do we know what happened to the other 3?
I'm not sure. That's a great question. We'll have to look into it. Yeah.
So when you open the door, it's so lush inside.
It
really is. I mean, we think of leather and everything, but you don't really have, it looks like a fabric
It's
back.
very cozy. Yes, it's very cozy and very Victorian looking, and the brocade fabrics and the tufted seats.
I would imagine it might have been hard to get in there with the hats.
That's very possible. Yes, I don't know how they did it in their getup.
Now, is that a little trunk on the back?
It is. It's a little trunk that opens. You could store any of your, purchases in there, or anything that you needed for your trip.
Well, obviously, this sister didn't do a lot of shopping because it looks like it might be a little too small.
It's a little tiny.
Absolutely. Maybe it's that delivery kind of thing back in the day.
Absolutely.
So we're going to move on to a Cadillac.
Absolutely, yes. This is the most recent acquisition into our vehicle collection here at Hagley. This is a 1918 Type 57 Cadillac, and this this was owned by Irénée Brip DuPont Jr., who lived at Grenoble. And he passed away this past year, and we're just so thankful to him, his wife, and his family for all of the generous gifts that they've given Hagley over the years.
And he made it to about 100 or
he
close,
made it to
didn't he?
103.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely. And he restored this vehicle himself in, I believe it was 1962. And he bought the vehicle in his, I believe, freshman year of college at Dartmouth. And he bought it for about 40 bucks.
Wow.
And then he had to buy a $10 battery to actually get it out of the yard that he bought it from. So it's come a long way.
And he
since
kept
then.
it this entire time.
He's kept it this entire time, and it still runs.
That's amazing. Have you been inside it?
I have, yes.
What's the ride like?
It's, you know what, it's actually very nice. It's very smooth. We've driven it through Hagley's property, which is a smooth ride anyway. So, but it's a beast of a car for sure.
I can imagine the steering. It's not power steering, that's for sure.
No.
Absolutely. It's just really beautiful, and it's been restored over the years. What's the 100 years? Is
the
that
100 years is marking the 100th anniversary of this Cadillac, the 1918.
It really is. I guess he took a lot of pride. Was it his first car?
I believe it was maybe his first antique automobile at that time that he had purchased. But he was a big car guy, and he did a beautiful job in its restoration.
You can see it.
Yeah.
You can see it. And we're going to see a couple more vehicles here for DuPonts down the road when we return.
Hi, my name is Liz Shea. I'm the Director of Collections and Curator of Mollusks here at the Delaware Museum of Nature and Science. So get ready to discover something new on the 302.
Welcome back. We're talking about DuPonts down the road. We talked about the first 3 vehicles, and this next one is a beauty. I'm joined by Caroline. Now let's talk a little bit about this car right here. You know, it's black, it's green. When you look at the emblem, the first thing you think, if you don't look close, is that it's a Rolls, but it's not a Rolls.
It's not, no. This is a DuPont Motors Model G Phaeton from 1928. And this was E. Paul DuPont's personal car. E. Paul DuPont was the founder of DuPont Motors right here in Wilmington, Delaware. They manufactured luxury cars.
Now, a lot of people don't, they don't think about DuPont and cars necessarily, but, I mean, they would have made cars for the very wealthy and a select, people, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So DuPont Motors and DuPont Company, they're actually completely 2 separate things, not related whatsoever, but you're correct. And these were luxury automobiles. You could customize them in any way that you wanted to, down to the color, down to the style. And fun fact about this car, actually, E. Paul had this vehicle painted like a lavender color with some green accents originally. The story is that he got so many catcalls about it that he changed it very quickly in just a couple months to this black color that you see here today.
Which is funny because when you go to car shows, it's like pink and purple and red and orange.
He was ahead of his time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about this vehicle. It's been repainted emerald green and black, super shiny. I mean, tell me a little bit about, this model.
Sure. So this model was E. Paul's personal car, as I mentioned. His wife also drove it. No power steering. It's a beast to drive. It's pretty heavy, but it's a lot of fun, so I've heard. I haven't driven it myself. But this vehicle was recently restored by Last Chance Garage. Both out on the outside, the hood is the area that was given the most attention because we had some flaking paint on there, but that's been stabilized, and that's what gives you that shiny look right now. And then also they did some mechanical work on it because we do keep this car running as well.
I can imagine finding parts for it. It has got to be very difficult. You almost have to make the parts for it.
Yeah, they're very specific, and luckily we have a great group of car guys, especially because of Hagley's car show. We have this wonderful group of people who have just such a wonderful knowledge base to help us out.
One of the cool things is there's like a privacy. There's like glass that folds out when the windows are up. So, you can be in the back having your own conversation and whoever's driving can do their thing.
Absolutely.
It's really
you have a little bit of privacy there if you want it. If you don't want it, you can fold it back down again. And then the top cap actually is made of Orlon, which is a DuPont company synthetic product. So that was specially made for the car.
It really is cool, but this car is really cool too. Now
Yes.
tell me a little bit, when I look at this, I think this is for a child, but it has a story. It's
Yeah.
inspired of a race car, right?
Absolutely, a real-life race car. So this is also DuPont Motors related. So in the early 1930s, DuPont Motors got into the world of international racing. So they competed at Le Mans in France, they competed at Indianapolis Raceway, and this vehicle in particular is a child-sized replica of that Indianapolis racer.
And who would this have been made for?
This would have just been made for a child. You could have bought this. They probably had them on show in the showroom of DuPont Motors. This is one of about probably maybe 8 or so that were made. So there's not many still left out there in the world. But it was a fun thing for Paul's children and then grandchildren to play around in, and so they were rolling around these roads as well.
Now you mentioned that the DuPonts were competitive. Did they ever win any titles?
So not that I know of. Le Mans, they did not, unfortunately. I believe they had a transmission issue. And then the same sort of thing happened at Indianapolis as well. But they made it 22 laps, and I'm pretty sure they were in a pretty good spot. So they didn't do too poorly.
You know, what else can you do but your absolute best?
Just gotta try.
So we've been talking about all of these cars, but now let's talk about this motorcycle in the
Sure.
corner. What's that all about?
Absolutely. So that was Paul DuPont's personal motorcycle. It is a Model 841 Indian motorcycle built in 1941. And that model, the 841, was actually manufactured and designed for desert combat in World War II. But this specifically was one of Paul DuPont's most favorite designs, most favorite motorcycles. So this was his personal one that he did up a little bit himself to show his style. So he's got the black and the orange style going on. And originally for the Army, you probably would have seen that Army green on most of those that were ordered. About 1,000 of them were ordered for World War II.
Now this was recently restored?
It was recently restored by our wonderful conservator, Ebenezer Kotai. He spent about 700 hours on restoring this Indian motorcycle.
He really did a good job.
It's beautiful.
So if someone wants to come down and check out all of these vehicles, how do they do it?
Just come to Hagley. That's all you need to do. It's on display every day that we're open, and you can just come in and read about all of these really interesting personal stories from 4 generations of the DuPont family.
Fantastic. Caroline, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us. And when we come back, we're going to talk about a convergence of cars every year here at Hagley. We'll be right back.
I'm Laura Fervell. I'm the curator at the Biggs Museum of American Art in Dover, Delaware, and I love the arts on the 302.
Welcome back. Every year, Hagley has an antique car show. This year, one of the themes is bygone brands. Take a look at these 5 cars. They are amazing. All of them were really popular back in the day, but sadly, they're not being made anymore. The first one we're going to talk about is this Hudson. What a beauty. I'm not really sure what you call this color. It's kind of a midnight blue. And I guess back in the day, they didn't have fancy names, but joining me to talk a little bit about this car is Trey Gravely. Now, Trey, thank you so much for joining us.
Yep, I'm glad to be here.
So you restored this car, right?
I got it back on the road after 24 years.
So what was it like whenever you first got it?
The biggest challenge with this car was parts obsolescence, parts availability. That and the fan base for Hudsons is mostly dried up. It's an orphan car.
Now I know they made a movie about Hudson, about, you know, the great boom of car makers and everything. So this was a very popular car back in the day, is that right?
Yeah, money-wise it was equivalent to about a Buick. The biggest thing to know about Hudson, if you didn't know anything else about them, is they were an engineering company. This car drives about 10 years newer than it is. It's got modern shocks in 1941. It's got center point steering, liquid suspended cork clutch. It's they were an engineering company. They cared about how their car drove.
So they were ahead of their time.
Yep.
Fantastic. Now you also restored the Metropolitan, is that right?
I work on both at Tom's Metropolitans.
Well, let's go take a look. This one is a beauty, absolutely. So I see the hood ornament, it's really gorgeous.
Yep, yeah, that's the George Getty lady. That was modeled after a designer's daughter. He did the centerfolds for Esquire magazine. That was an option on more premier Nash cars, adapted down to, you could dealer option it on these.
Mm-hmm. So why are these cars, I mean, they're small, you know, I know American cars, they went really big, but why did they stop production?
Nash merged with Hudson into AMC.
Okay.
And that lasted until Iacocca bought them for Chrysler for Jeep.
So it just kind of got phased out over time.
Got dissolved into other companies.
Really is a cool color. You know the actual name.
I think this one is autumn yellow and snowberry white, I think is the swatch colors for this car.
Yeah. So everything original on this car? The seats are
This
amazing.
car is pretty original. It's been painted, it's got an original interior in it that's starting to age. We're looking into options for that. But this is a neat, nice driving, original car.
Absolutely. Well, Trey, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. Now we're going to check out a Pontiac. So the theme is bygone brands, and we have here a Pontiac which was recently phased out. Is that right?
Yes.
This is Michael Crawford. He is the owner of this beauty. Tell me all about her.
Well, it's a 55 Pontiac Star Chief. It's the first year for the V8, so it's got a 318 V8, and it's got a Hydromatic 4-speed in it. It's all original except for the paint was done in '91 and the interior is done in '91, but mechanics, brakes, exhaust, rear end, everything else is original. 80,000 original miles.
You have to really love a car to put this much work into it. What is it about this car that speaks to you?
Well, I really wanted a 55 Chevy.
Okay.
And they were very dear and hard to find. And this car was complete, ready to drive. I haven't done anything to it but put gas in it. And I wanted a turnkey car that I could just enjoy. There's not so much time it takes to restore a car like this. And this car was in such good original shape that I really enjoy that aspect of it, that it hasn't been modified one bit. And I just drive it. I enjoy it.
How does she drive?
Like a living room.
Like a living room?
You're in your couch, you know. It's a huge, heavy metal car.
Michael, thank you so much for sharing your love of the Pontiac.
You're quite welcome.
And now we're going to go check out some red cars. This is a gorgeous car. This is bright red. This is Don Duncan. Don, this is your dream car, right?
It is.
Why is this your dream car?
Well, I was born the year I got my driver's license, and I've been waiting 62 years to be able to drive it.
Now, you're relatively new to the car showing scene, right?
Yes.
So when did you get this beautiful baby, and does she have a name?
She does.
What is it?
Dolly.
Dolly. Why did you pick Dolly?
Well, if you look at her, she's a beautiful car.
Absolutely.
I'll just leave it at that.
Absolutely. So you got her about 5 years ago. Can you tell me, is she all original? Do you have to work on her?
I didn't, but there's almost nothing original on her. It's what they call a frame-off rotisserie restoration. The original car was found in a barn in Daytona Beach, Florida, and they took what was left of it out, took it down to the frame, and then completely rebuilt it from the frame up. The fellow who did it, his father was a longtime Pontiac dealer, and he had access to all the Pontiac parts, fenders, lights, everything. So everything's new on it, but nothing was salvageable after 10 or 15 years of living in a garage.
Well, you wouldn't be able to tell. So you are in the Hagley Car Show this year. What made you decide to show your beauty?
Well, I've been here a couple times,
Yeah.
and they invited me back this year for a feature presentation. So she's a beautiful car. She looks well, and just nice to be able to share her with people.
I bet you get a lot of honks and whistles when you take her out.
I do, and it's I drive it to the grocery store. I take it to dinners, breakfasts, all kinds of stuff. I use it all the time. This is a car that drives. It's not a show car. It's a show-off car.
Absolutely. Why not enjoy it? Don, thank you so much. And again, the Hagley Car Show is every September. So if you're here at that time, you want to come out and check it out. We'll be right back. Aren't these cars really cool? If you come down to check them out, make sure you snap a picture and share it with us on Facebook. Now here are some other things you might want to check out. Information on the DuPonts down the road or any of the exhibits here at Hagley Museum and Library, you can visit hagley.org. That'll do it for this week's episode of the 302. Make sure you follow us on Facebook for some really amazing behind-the-scenes content you're just not going to get anywhere else. We're going to leave you now with some beauty shots of the grounds here at Hagley. Until next time, I'm Jackie Ferris. Tell them you saw it on the 302.